Would the Cubs be willing to trade Matt Shaw and go out and sign a third baseman? Well, there's some sentiment that it could possibly happen, and part of it is that there are some pretty big names available on the market right now to play the hot corner. We're going to talk about that. Would you trade Shaw, or maybe would you just move him somewhere else if you went and added a third baseman? And a former Cubs infielder re-signs with the team that signed him after the Cubs took him off the 40-man roster. He's a guy that could help you, and Baltimore sure thinks that about Luis Vázquez. All that right here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. Get in the comments section. Thank you for being here, and let's get the show started. It's that time of year. Get ready. Buckle up. A lot going on. We'll be there to watch the roster construction as it happens before this 26 season starts. Let's go. Thanks, everybody. Mick Gillespie, Cubs Baseball channel. Good to see all you guys today. And I know we've been a little erratic as far as trying to do shows every day. We'll get back on schedule. Was spending some time in the beautiful Smoky Mountains. And it is great to have Visit Sevierville bring you today's show. All right, let's get this thing started. And I think that this is one of those topics that could define this offseason for the Cubs. And that is, will the Cubs go out and try to add a third baseman? Are they actively looking to replace Matt Shaw? Now, I think that the answer to this is yes. I think that they would probably like to have a veteran that could contribute more offensively over at third. Shaw defensively was great. He got on base with walks. I saw, and you guys did too, him grow as a player throughout the season. But there really wasn't consistent production from April until the end of the season. He was pretty good after the All-Star break. And I guess the question is, do the Cubs feel like that production is going to turn into star production? When I heard the chatter about, well, what if the Cubs go out and sign a third baseman? Does that mean they're going to trade Matt Shaw? I thought, well, I don't know that necessarily means that you have to trade Matt Shaw, because the good thing about Shaw is that he's very versatile. He can play shortstop. He can play second base. Maybe you teach him to play the outfield. And the Cubs really didn't have that good of a bench last year. Now, it'd be interesting to see how he would do as a utility guy and not an everyday player. But I've seen guys start out as utility guys, although he did start this past season, and then eventually get a position. And then there's players like Pete Rose who just bounced around and were all-stars at a lot of positions. And, could do pretty much anything that the team needed him to do. So I don't know what Shaw's role is going to be, but if the Cubs are going to add someone to replace him, it's going to have to be a really good player. And there's a list of guys that are available who I could see the Cubs going after, and their name kept being linked together with some of these guys already. And then two dudes coming from Japan who are going to make money. They're going to be signed by teams, and would not be surprised if the Cubs don't get in this mix, right? So before we hit that, hey, let me remind you about AveD. Join Mick Nation. There's our QR code right there. This is the hat, and we gave one of these away already, and we're going to give more away. Make sure you're part of AveD. Comment in the comments section, and sport this baby. I want to see some of these in the bleachers. So we'll keep giving them away. You guys keep wearing them, keep commenting, And if you're interested in buying one, you can do that as well for the hefty sum of $25, and I will include shipping in that. So basically, you're just paying for this hat. And if you want to do that, comment with your email address, and I'll email you back. That's how we're going to start doing this right now. All right. Strong list of available free agents. There's the banner. And to me, it starts with this guy here, Alex Bregman. Okay, so Alex Bregman signed that $40 million contract last year with the Boston Red Sox. And he ended up making the All-Star team, but was injured, couldn't play in the game. For the season, he hit .273, had 28 doubles, 18 home runs, and scored 64 runs. He had that right quad strain that really kind of kept him down. But when he was healthy, he was a difference maker. And he had an opt-out in his contract, and so he opted out because he wants the long-term deal. So he's not going to get $40 million over 5 years, right? So he's projected right now to get $150 million to $200 million over 5 years. And I'm not sure if the Cubs are going to pay him. I mean, look for the Tigers, look for the Blue Jays, even the Red Sox to get back in this mix again. The Cubs were seen as suitors for a lot of the Bregman, free agency last year. And then eventually he went to the Red Sox. And they kept saying, well, you don't want to be a right-handed hitter and go to Wrigley because you're not going to hit as many doubles. They kept saying that. I don't know that that's necessarily true. Right-handers have had great success at Wrigley. But Bregman is a winning player. He was a winner in Houston, helped the Red Sox kind of surprise everybody and make the postseason. And, if the Cubs wanted to pony up the money, he's certainly a guy that they would want to get. Now, the other guy that I'm going to put at the top of the list is another guy that we kept hearing could potentially be coming to the Cubs, and that is Eugenio Suarez. Suarez was, you remember, he was with the Reds for a while, and then he was with the Diamondbacks, and then he went to, in a trade at the deadline, to Seattle. And the Cubs were kind of seen as a potential home for Suarez as maybe a trade. And the Diamondbacks and the Cubs were kind of rumored to be talking. And it was like maybe Suarez, maybe Zach Gallen, maybe Merrill Kelly, but they didn't do anything. And Suarez was traded to the Mariners and helped the Mariners get to the playoffs and make their deepest run in their franchise history. They lost in the last game to the Blue Jays, right? Wasn't it 7? Didn't they go 7? Anyway, Seattle, he wasn't very good. Well, I'll say he's not very good. The regular season for him in Seattle was 13 home runs. He batted under 200, which I just can't stand hitting. He hit 189, and he had a 255 on base percentage. Did have 13 home runs and 31 runs batted in. But what I really liked about him was when the playoffs started, he brought his best stuff. And he was a difference maker for them. He hit 308, and he had 2 home runs and 7 runs batted in the series against the Blue Jays. And the series against Detroit, he had a home run in that series. He's a guy who has a lot of postseason experience. Tigers in 14, Reds in 20, and then, obviously the Mariners. And so this was one of those players who could be a huge difference maker maybe for a team. And you could probably get him, Eugenio Suarez, for what the Cubs would probably like at 3 years, 72 million instead of the 150, 200 million. The issue though is, he's not as complete of a player as Bregman. He does have pop, got a lot of pop, but he's also a guy that strikes out a lot. And, he's led the league in strikeouts 3 times in his career. 23 when he was with the Mariners for the first time. The dude struck out 214 times. So, just he's one of those players who you look at his career. He's hit 325 home runs. Could he hit 500 before it's all said and done? He's in the 12th year of his career. I think he potentially could, right? But he's a lot of strikeouts. Maybe you use him to platoon if you're the Cubs at DH, go between DH and third. I'd say Shaw's a better defender, but Suarez is always dangerous in the lineup. And like I said, the price might be right. Now you roll on, and then you talk about a couple of guys from Japan. And those guys are going to be highly sought after. And there's 2 third basemen coming over from Japan that are being posted. The first guy is Munetaka Murakami. Now, Murakami is interesting because, he's really made such a name for himself in the NBP, which is, or MPB, which is the Nippon Professional Baseball League over in Japan. He's a 2-time Central League MVP, and he really became famous because he broke Sadaharu Oh's single-season home run record by a Japanese player. He did that in 22. So Sadaharu Oh was like the Japanese version of Babe Ruth. And then this kid comes along and just, hits a bunch of bombs. He won the Triple Crown in 22, right? And he was only 22 years old when he did it. And that year he hit 318 with 56 home runs and 134 runs batted in, right? So the 56 home runs, that broke the record that had stood since 1964. And you guys remember him from the World Baseball Classic in 23, had a walk-off double against Mexico in that semifinal game. So he's being posted. This is a younger dude, right? And it's projected that he's going to make about 160, and that's million, over 6 years, right? So he's projected there, maybe as much as 200 million, but this guy's going to be sought after by the Yankees, the Dodgers. Why not? Why can't the Dodgers just sign everybody, right? The Mariners, they love to have Japanese players there, obviously with Ichiro. So at 25 years old, he's still really young. And the same teams that you're going to hear for Bregman are going to be in the mix for him. Maybe even throw in the Boston Red Sox. Now, what the Dodgers have done is by going out and getting the most elite Japanese players, the World Series in Japan is scoring huge ratings. And the Dodgers are making that $700 million contract to Ohtani seem like maybe he should have charged more, because they've become the international brand of Major League Baseball. And I would have loved to have seen the Cubs kind of get in there. And I know the Cubs do have some Japanese players in Shota Imanaga and Seiya Suzuki. So, who knows? This could be another area where the Cubs look and they say, hey, you know what? We're going to get somebody at 26 or 25 years old, and then, put him in the lineup, and he's going to be here for a while. It is a risk. I mean, it does. You're not guaranteed to come over from Japan and play and be successful, but the risk has changed a lot in my mind, over the years. I mean, the Japanese players are coming over and they're amongst the best in the league, so it shows just how good their league is. And the transition's been not as hard as it used to be for those guys. So, we'll see. That's one. Now, the other guy, and we've talked about him before, and that's Kazuma Okamoto. And Okamoto is someone who the Cubs could probably get at more of a bargain brand, kind of like they did with Imanaga, just because he's an older guy. He's in his late 20s, but he plays in Japan as well for the Yomiuri Giants and is a corner infielder. We talked about him before. This in his career, he's a 271 career hitter, and he's hit 249 home runs over in Japan. And last year he had an elbow injury, so he only played 69 games, but he's been a really accomplished player there. 6-time All-Star, 2-time winner of the Golden Glove at third base there. And he's led the MPB in home runs 3 times in his career. So he's going to be posted, or he was posted in October, right? So is it October? Yeah. So there's a 45-day window. All this is going to happen fast once, this thing gets rolling. So look for him to be someone, but he's a guy that had a 6-year streak of 30 home runs from 2018 to 2023. You could get him at like I said, at a more bargain brand rate, right? 4 years, $90 million, or maybe 5 years, $100 million. But, for the Cubs, this is a guy who they may feel a little bit more comfortable buying. And you're talking about the Mariners, again, the Mets, potentially the Red Sox, the Diamondbacks, So the only reason I think you look at it and you go, well, he's obviously a little older, but sometimes that puts him in a spot where, if you're going to have him, he's not developing anymore. I mean, he's ready to be a star player in the major leagues. So, we'll see if this is a direction that the Cubs want to go. I wanted to kind of highlight some of these guys and talk about them because I think that this is a real potential move that the Cubs could make. It's just because you keep hearing about it. Last year they talked about Bregman, and again, we hear about Suarez. And when you look at Shaw's numbers, they're okay, but the Cubs need more punch, and they're going to get more punch if they go and bring in a star third baseman. Now, you're not going to do anything with Dansby Swanson. He's there. Nico Horner is, I think, becoming one of the best second basemen in baseball. Michael Busch, you're not going to do anything with him at first. I think catcher is a spot where the Cubs could make a move. I've talked about that with Bregman of Baltimore, maybe going and making a move there to get him. You got, Ian Happ, somebody that you're stuck with because he's got a no trade clause. Same with Seiya Suzuki. And then Pete Crow Armstrong, you're not going to do anything there. So, it's Kyle Tucker or Owen Casey. How's that going to pan out? I think catcher and third base are 2 areas, and then utility guy where the Cubs could potentially, make some moves to build the roster. And then what's their appetite to spend? That's the other thing. And I don't know, but I also wonder what Shaw would demand in the free agent market, or in the trade market. Like, what could you get back for him? I mean, could you package him to Baltimore for Bregman? Because to have a star catcher in this league is few and far between. But it's a risk because, I still think Shaw is a big time up and coming talent. And I think he's going to be a really good player. You saw flashes of it last year. He's still trying to get it all figured out. Do you want to trade him away and then he goes somewhere else and becomes a star? Well, I mean, if it helps your roster, and it's not that you don't think he's going to be a star, but you're getting a star back at that catcher position, that to me would definitely interest. If I was the the GM of the team. I'd say, hey, that's something I want to do. Now, talking about Baltimore, they re-signed infielder Luis Vázquez. This was one of those deals. Do you guys remember when the Cubs just released him, took him off the 40-man roster? Some of those moves that they were making that, it was kind of, I was like, what are we doing here? And I don't know that he's a superstar player, but he's a great building block, right? I think he's got Gold Glove potential at shortstop. And what the Orioles did with him was really interesting. He's 26 years old now. He ended up playing 36 games for that Orioles team that wasn't great. And he had a home run and a double and 50 at bats. He hit 160, right? But where he was great is that they used him all over the infield, DH'd, and even pitched 4 1/3 innings in 4 different games for Baltimore, saving their pitching staff. So I didn't even know he had that in him. And he also was in AAA this year for 43 games, and he hit 271 there with 5 home runs and 23 runs batted in. This, to me, goes back to they're building this roster. They're signing guys like Justin Turner, and at the end of the year they got Carlos Santana. These really, really old players that are clearly past their prime. And I looked at Vasquez and I thought, well, if you don't want Vasquez, you got to have a plan before the season starts, or before that he has to be on the 40-man roster, and you trade him like at the deadline. I know there would have been value there, and I'm not surprised that he's in Baltimore and he's helping out, right? And I'm not surprised that they brought him back. Is this going to be one of those moves where you look back one day and say, hey, man, they really gave up something good? I don't know. I mean, maybe not. But, just the criticism to me is if you don't, what happens is that you're in the minor leagues, you sign a contract as you get drafted, sign that first contract. The big league teams have you for a certain amount of time, and they have to look at the roster at the big league level and project how that's going to play out for the minor leagues, and then try to get something back for some of these guys that if they're not going to use. Now, to take up for the front office, part of that too could have been that they had so many good players that you couldn't keep them all. Maybe they intended to, and then, circumstances happened and you just give them away. But I just have this feeling that one day we're going to watch, and, he's going to be like the 26th man on the roster, but he's going to be a really good 26th man, like a Willie Castro type of guy. So we'll see. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. Good for him. That's it for today's show. We got lots to talk about. We got an entire off season. You guys get in the comment section. Tell me what you think. Would you get rid of Shaw? Would you keep Shaw around? What's your feeling on that? And don't forget to hit that right there, that QR code. We got always got something on there to predict. Bears football for you, maybe NFL, college, whatever it is you follow. And maybe we'll do one of these foreign baseball leagues when they start up. Who wants to predict games in Venezuela? It'd be fun. I know we have some of our audience lives there, so it'd be cool for them. They could help us out. We got winter ball coming up, and that's about the baseball we're gonna have. So anyway, thank you. Please like and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Share with your Cubs friends, and we will do it again tomorrow. So we're locked in now. Let's go.
When you head to the Smoky Mountains, it's only natural to visit Sevierville.
Even we had to check it out.
And we've been here our whole lives.
Experience the adventure of a lifetime.
I'm king of the world.
Even you can get a bird's eye view of the Smokies.
You're going down, Billy. Whoa.
Your Smokies start here.